All right, so in today's live stream, we're going to be working on the system that we were working on yesterday, which is the pre-selection system, so that you can select which weapon specifically you want to equip from the holster. So as you can see, when I press on T, the T key, I have an option if you want to get the rifle, the pistol, or the bolt. So as you can see, I have options to... Wait, hold on. Let me just... We're live. Yeah, the inventory system usually is a system where you can pick up the weapons, select which weapon you want to have. But it's not like a inventory system where you have the options to see how many bullets you have, which weapons you have. It's just a basic one, just to manipulate the system a little bit so that you guys can understand how it works in the back end. So we're going to just make a simple inventory system where you can really see which weapons you have holstered, so that you can select a key so that you can equip that specific pistol that you select. So at the moment, we're just going to do the basic stuff first, so that we can, of course, make a more realistic inventory system with a more realistic HUD. Of course, the HUD doesn't really need to be realistic, to be honest. It just needs to show you exactly and clearly like which weapons you have, something like that. I think that's what a HUD is, right? So as you can see, you have a HUD for the bow, so it shows you which weapon you have and how many bullets you have. That's the HUD system that we have. Now, I think when you press tab, for example, in The Last of Us, you have the options to see. I think the options to see the inventory system, to see the inventory, like which items you have in order to craft other stuff. And I think I want to get into that later. I want to make that kind of inventory system. Oops. One question: your ALS can I replace with my default project with which uses gameplay tags? I'm not sure. You're gonna have to test it out on your own. Usually that requires a lot of... Yeah, based from what I know, that usually requires a lot of things to make in order to make it work, right? To integrate a system into another project that has a lot of systems. Gameplay tags. Gameplay tags. Yeah, that system. Can you explain more about it? Because I haven't used that before. All right, I want to solve a bug that we have so far, which is when you press 1 to get the rifle, for example, and then when I press 2 to get the pistol, as you can see, it gets the pistol and then it gets the bow without with the weapons being attached to the to the character. Look at this. So every item has a gameplay tag. How does that work? All right, let me just try to fix that issue. Yeah, so basically we're missing a code in here because it, when you hold on. When you equip a weapon, it doesn't really check if the character is holding a weapon, so we're gonna have to do that right now. Yeah. So in here, in this code, it checks if the weapon is equipped. Maybe you could try to... Let me think a little bit. This is complex. A little bit complex to fix that bug. All right, let's just get this code, because this code in here, it checks if the character is holding a weapon. So if the character is holding a weapon, this branch is going to return true, right? Now, of course, we need to run the animation as well. We have the holster animation, so the character has to holster that weapon, right? Right. Okay. Caramba. All right, let's do this. Let's get this first. And of course, we need the macro to run. And we need set last holstered weapon to be true, to be false. Okay, and then we set the last holstered weapon again. I'm not sure how that happens. It's completed. Yeah, I'm not sure how this code is made. And then for the saved weapon reference, we set the weapon state to be weapon is holstered. So basically you gotta if the weapon is not found. Okay. Yeah, let's just try this option here first. Let's just copy paste everything. That's going to look messy, but that's okay for the beginning. We just want to test new things. If the character finds, if the inside the code, if we have a weapon equipped, so basically this code is just for check if the character has any weapon owned and equipped. Because if you already have a weapon equipped, and if you want to select a weapon that is holstered on the character, we firstly have to holster the weapon that is already equipped, so that we can equip the other weapon that's holstered. That makes sense. So I think you don't need to change anything in the coding here, because this macro already gets the variable that we want. So all you gotta do is check first if the character has any weapon owned. Now, if it does have any weapon owned, then we're gonna have to holster that weapon. So in case the character wants to, if the player wants to pick up a weapon, just equip a weapon that is holstered, and the character has already a weapon that is already equipped on the character, we're gonna have to equip we're gonna have to holster the weapon that is already equipped on the character first, so that we can holster and then equip the other weapon that he wants to equip from the holster. That makes sense. So check if the character has any weapon owned and equipped. So if the character has a weapon equipped, then first we're going to holster. If it doesn't, then we can go directly into equipping a weapon. All right. All right, so in this case, we're going to holster weapon in case character. So holster weapon first, in case character already has a weapon. So he's going to holster so that we can, let me just write this down. Write it down so that we can equip another weapon from the holster. All right, so let's test it out to see if it's working. I want to see this performing in the background as well. So I'm just going to debug this and see. I mean, I'm very curious to see what's going to happen here. So I'm going to just press 1. Yeah, the IK, I think, yeah, the only problem is the IK, that's all. But I think it works correctly. If I press 2 to get the pistol, as you can see, it works. If I get the rifle, if I get the pistol, press 1, press 2, press 1 to get the rifle. Yeah, it works. It's working. It is working. Now okay, press 2 to get the pistol. Yeah, okay. Press 3 to get the bowl. Press 2 to get the pistol. There we go. It looks very much good. I'm surprised. Now I just need to refine the system here because it's a mess. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to save this one first because I don't want to lose this coding here. What I'm gonna do is just copy what I usually like to do to save the code is just go to maybe random coding and then publish the backup copy. So that's the holster unholster graph. Unholster graph. Backup logic. So that I can also copy and then paste this somewhere else in here, right below it. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to set up a way to reuse the same functions that is up in here. I don't have to redo everything. I don't have to copy paste all this. I'm going to try to find a way to make that work. So usually I think we can just unplug this. And then plug the connection directly in here. So this is the holster logic. So firstly, we're going to check if the character is playing any montage. Yeah, we also have this coding here. This code is designed for unholstering specific weapon. We carry a specific index of the array so that we can get the right reference of the weapon. Right. So this is a validation process of, basically checking if we're using the system of unholstering or just basically holstering, because we have two systems right now. To holster the weapon, we have the option to holster. No, actually, yeah, we use the same system to holster and either holster and unholster the weapon. We do everything on the same graph. So in the old way, that's going to be the old way, but you would usually press Q so that we can, just holster the weapon, and that works fine. I'm going to press Q again so that, as you can see, that triggers exactly the same thing. And you can also press T so that you can select, we can have a pre-selection of which specific weapon you want to have. And that's where this variable comes to be true, because we need to specify, we have a specific index to be get from the owned weapons that is equipped on the character, so that we can holster, so that we can pick up from the holster. So when you press 2, this gets to be true because we're using a specific way of specific system and code to get and equip the weapon from the holster. So that's why you have this mess in here, but it's going to be solved soon because we're not going to be needing, we're not going to be using the queue to, we're not going to be using the T key to be used in there. Or I think, this, we can organize this a little bit better, but I think it's not going to be, it's not going to be worth to organize this now because we're going to be changing some of the code later. So we don't need to worry about this now. So just ignore this for now. What we're focused here is on this code in here where we can place this specific code. So what's happening here is just we validate the references and then we get the weapon reference. And then usually when it gets the weapon reference, we need to see, it gets the weapon that is equipped. So basically it finds out, so let me just write this down because commentaries are very useful. You have to comment everything to just know what you're doing. And sometimes I get confused like in this one. So just always add commentaries, commentaries, I don't know. So we don't, from executing this code by pressing Q, we execute this code. But firstly, in here, we need to know if the code is firstly checking. We basically need to know if we should holster or unholster by pressing Q. Later, we're going to be modifying this, so I'm not going to enter that much details, but basically I want to be able to unholster and unholster the weapons by pressing Q, so that we can have everything. And then you can also have the chance to pre-select which weapon you want to unholster in case the character has more than two weapons holstered, so that we can have a more precision way of getting the weapons and etc. So I'm going to write this down in here. So let's say, for example, this just a observation, by the way. The same code will be used. Same code is triggered by pressing the key Q. And then another observation is that this same code checks and decide if we should holster or unholster okay when unholstering we can select which weapon we want to unholster. All right, and this one, validate. Hello, Morningstar. What's up? How it's been? How it's been? So in here, if the weapon is found, if the character has any weapon equipped, this branch is going to trigger true or false depending if the character is holding a weapon, has a weapon equipped. If the character has the weapon equipped, probably we're gonna have to unholster first. Let me just check this out. If you have the weapon and press Q, oh, I got lost. We have a release date for the ledge climbing tutorial. Wow, it's going to be... I would say... yeah, it's going to take a while. I think in 1 week, 7 days. I was scheduling it for it to be on Sunday, but because I have to refine the system, not refine the system, but make a lighter version that is simpler, because I'm going to spend hours and hours on the tutorial, and I also have some plans for doing marketing of the animations. So I need to think how I'm going to do all that. And also document the code a little bit. But I want to launch it as soon as possible, so that's why I'm like this way. So if it's not if it's not unholstering a specific weapon, okay, so you press Q, the weapon is equipped. So if the weapon is equipped and we press Q, that means that we want to unholster. We just want to unholster the weapon that is equipped. But what if we're unholstering a specific weapon and then we have the weapon equipped? Then we're gonna have to holster the weapon first. So we're going to holster the weapon first. And then finally on here, we can decide if we are if we are going to be unholstering a specific weapon. So check if we are, yeah, as soon as it's completed. So let me just see where that's gonna be. Notify begin. Yeah, maybe uncompleted could be a good option to place. But if in case the holster for holstering the weapon gets the animation for holstering gets interrupted, then we're gonna also have to handle that, because if this animation is interrupted, then we could cause bugs in the code. So I'm going to make on the unnotify begin for now. Let me just see where that is on the animation. Oh yeah, that's just a boolean. No, that's not this one. Oh yeah, this is the for holstering the pistol. As you can see, the unnotify begin play gets to be in here. So that's when the code is executed. Okay. So we're going to just check if we are unholstering a specific weapon. So after we holster that whatever weapon that's going to be equipped on the character's hand, we are going to check if we are unholstering a specific weapon. And then, if we are, we're going to be holstering that weapon. unholstering that specific weapon. And for doing that, we are going to firstly get this code to be executed there. Because this is going to be the saved reference of what, this is going to be the reference that we want to get for unholstering that specific weapon. So that makes sense. And then we want to connect it into here. And then basically this is save and promote the weapon reference of the chosen weapon reference from the pre-selection. Basically save the reference of the chosen weapon to be equipped from holster. And then we're going to use the saved variable to equip from holster. Now we're gonna have to set up the other one, which is from here. So if you press Q, and then there's no weapon equipped on the character's hand, we can just holster. Let me just see. If you have the weapon equipped, if you press Q, you want to holster the weapon. So no weapon is equipped on the character's hand. Just holster it. Just equip the selected weapon. Now here we have this code that we've made. Let me just see if the references are in here. So it's going to get the BP owned weapons, get the owned weapons reference the character is holding, so that we can use it to holster the weapon the character is holding first before picking up a new weapon or making the character to drop the weapon or do anything else. So here we find for the weapon is holstered. As for the weapon state. And now, let me just see what I'm gonna do in here. Think a little bit. This code it gets the weapon reference, but we don't need to get the weapon reference as we already have the weapon reference that we want. So I think what we gotta do in here is just get this if it's unholstering a specific weapon. It's not false. Yeah, I think that makes sense. No weapon is equipped on the character's hand, just equip the selected weapon. And now we have the system, the new system, which is to check if the character is holstering a specific weapon. So if we are holstering a specific weapon, we're going to skip this because we don't need to get the weapon reference as we already have in here. As you can see, we already have it here. So we're going to use that and then plug it directly. Actually, we don't need to get the reference, just plug it directly in there. There we go. And then if it's false, if you're not using the system to unholster that specific weapon, we're going to just get the weapon reference from the other system. Hopefully that works. Let me test it out. Something happened here. Oh, here. I have to remove this. If it's not unholstering a specific weapon, then we can just use the saved reference. Actually, this one should be in here. Yeah, that's going to be a little bit confusing for now because we have two systems merging together. So that's going to be a little bit confusing. Actually, everything is confusing. But when you make complex systems as this one, you have to 100% pay attention to what you're doing to not mess things up and forget what we've done. Yeah, so that's going to be it for this live stream. Now the queue, just an update, the queue is going to be just unholster. So let's just write this down, just unholstering. Just unholster. Because we're going to be merging, and yeah, of course we're going to have to delete all this. All right, so the queue key can either be to just holster and equip from holster. But if you have more than one weapon, I think it's not going to. Yeah, the Q key can also work for unholstering a weapon, but if you press Q, it's going to unholster just a random weapon so far. But now if you press T, you can pre-select which weapon you want to equip. So let's press 1 to get the bow. As you can see, now get the pistol, press 2. Press 3 to get the rifle. I'm thinking about to get a system to work like a slot. So every time when the rifle is owned by the player, I want to give that rifle a specific unique slot, so that if you always press 3, you can get the rifle, and if you always press 1, if you have the pistol, you can always get the pistol by the same input key, which is 1. So yeah, that's going to be it for today. We've got to make we've got to refine a little bit the holster logic. Before we were having issues with pre-selecting with the pre-selection of the weapons. So yeah, that's going to be it for today. And